This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. Okay.
Hello,
and welcome to Death by Southwest. This is episode number 70, which is crazy. I mean, I know I read in the bonus we just did, like, a blurb about Sinisterhood, and they're on episode, like, 297 or something, so 70 is kind of nothing compared to that, but still a lot, because if you count the bonus episodes, it's actually like 140.
Yeah.
Indiana, really, we just started.
Well, and it's a year and a half in.
Yep, it is almost exactly, because we started December 12th, 2023.
2022.
2022?
Because we're in 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah, right when I got back from Costa Rica, we started.
That's so fitting, because today's episode takes place in Costa Rica.
There it is.
Yep. And I realized that Costa Rica is not necessarily Southwest, but I don't know. It's South, and it caught my eye, and I thought we'd do it something different.
I love Costa Rica.
So today, yes, our episode, and we did one recently where we did two recently where I kind of did it differently. Like, I didn't tell you about the people. We jumped right into the crime. Well, today now I'm going to tell you about our main.
You're going back.
I'm going back to
the victim.
The victim. Yes, we're going to focus on the victim. I'm going to tell you about the victim. And I will say, when I first started researching this one, I read or saw a blurb on this woman. And when I first started researching it, I actually thought, I didn't know if it was a murder or if it was just a missing person. And I was like, I'm going to do it anyways, because we've always had a murder.
Right.
That was kind of the point of the podcast. I think that it's our podcast, though. We don't have we're not with a network. We don't have boss. We can do whatever we want. So I think sometimes it would be interesting to do one where you don't know. Is it a murder? Is it just a missing person? And that's kind of what you have to figure out. I just ruined this one because I told you I thought it was just a missing person, but it's not.
Right. You could cut that if you want.
That's true. So it takes place in Costa Rica in the suburb of San Jose called ESCAZU. It's a suburb of San Jose in the Central Valley of Costa Rica, which you've been to Costa Rica. You can tell me more.
San Jose, that's where you fly in, fly out. That's the international airport. And
is it in the middle?
Yeah, it's not on a coast. I haven't spent much time there. I've been there and I fly back there, or I go back there before I fly out the night before.
Right.
It's a city. It's a city.
You guys, didn't you stay in a cool, I almost want to say casino or resort?
Yeah, we
or something?
stay both times we've been to Costa Rica. We stay at I want to say it's the Embassy Suites, but it's huge. And it's got,
casino.
It's got a casino room. It's got two huge pools. It's kind of I don't know. It's a nice way to end the trip in
Sure.
Because San Jose, it's a city, but we're there for the beaches and the jungles and the this and that. And San Jose's more just
city. Kind of to get in and get out.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about Belize, the Belize city. It was like we just flew in and then wanted to get out of that city immediately. Brain pause right there. A lot of, I'm just reading a little bit about, I didn't have much about ESCAZU, Costa Rica, but a lot of European and North American expats have settled there because it is physically close to San Jose, yet seems far away from the bustling city atmosphere. It's a great location for those looking for modern amenities, high-end real estate, and gated communities. And apparently there's two different parts of ESCAZU. There's the San Rafael de ESCAZU, which is right at the exit of the highway as you come from San Jose. It's modern and trendy, really nice houses and condos, high-end restaurants, hotels, and bars. And then as you go up from that area into the mountains of ESCAZU, which is where I believe our story takes place, is Old Town ESCAZU. And it's more traditional, lots of little restaurants and inns, kind of a more small town countryside feel. And that's where I believe our story takes place today, mostly. So bear with me, listeners. I hand wrote this episode. I've never done that before. So it's going to be a lot of me trying to read my handwriting as I tell this story. And the main woman in our story today is Carla Stefaniak. And Carla was a charismatic, outgoing, fun-loving, friendly Venezuelan native. She lived in Venezuela until she was 19 when her family emigrated to Florida. Her parents, herself, and her 2 brothers. She had a brother who was 6 years younger than her, Mario, and I believe her other brother, I want to say, was older than her, I think. She was a little bit of a wild child, so her family moved to Tampa when she was 19. And they actually ended up moving back to Venezuela in 2005. So they were only there for a few years. But Carla stayed in Florida. She was about 23 years old at the time. And
when is this? I'm sorry, you might have said it.
This takes place in 2018, 2019.
Thank you.
So her friends described her as very caring, very energetic. She had a ton of friends. She loved fashion. So she loved dressing up and going out. An interesting fact about her, I thought, was that she had a really packed closet, like tons and tons of clothes, but it was super well organized. And she always knew, she had like an inventory in her brain of everything she had. So you could like go into her closet and be like, can I borrow, this, or do you have a black leather skirt? She'd be like, yes, I have 2 black, she like knew everything.
She had like a brain catalog.
Yes, of all of her clothes, because she was very, very into fashion. She was, one of her friends said she was, quote, married to her phone. So she was on her phone constantly. She was a very quick texter. So she was somebody that if like you texted her, you were getting a response almost right away. She was never someone to be out of communication with her family and her friends. She worked at a travel agency. That was kind of her day job, but she really wanted to be a social media influencer. And ideally, she wanted to be a kind of a travel blogger, travel social influencer. So, and she wanted to do this so much that she actually signed up and took a couple kind of social media boot camps where it's exactly how it sounds. You learn how to grow your social media, hashtags to use, the right times to post, all the kind of tricks of the trade if you're trying to grow your following. And aside from that, she also, in an effort to kind of build this social media following as a travel influencer, she traveled a lot. So she traveled to Europe, Cuba. Her favorite place to go is New York City. This sounded fun. She took a trip to Iceland with a bunch of friends, and they rented an RV and drove around Iceland, went to Switzerland, traveled to the Caribbean. She just loved traveling pretty much anywhere and sounds like when she traveled, she was not somebody who kind of traveled and stayed at the hotel and ate at the hotel restaurant. Like she traveled, she wanted to see everything. She
wanted to live like a local and
yes,
explore around.
Yes, absolutely. So, in 2018, she was 35 years old, single, living in a place called Hollandale Beach, which is just north of Miami. And she was planning her 36th birthday for the fall of 2018, her birthday trip, and she wanted to go to Costa Rica. And she asked her sister-in-law, April, to come with her. So she, after she kind of figured out what that itinerary was going to look like and figured out all the plans for the trip, she had her brother and mom come over. I guess they were back in the States now. It was hard for me to follow that her family kind of moved to Florida, moved back to Venezuela. At some point they were back again. So she had her brother and mom over. She made them breakfast and she shared kind of her dream itinerary that she was hoping to do on this trip with them, to just so they would know. They were all very close, so they would know this is what my plan is. This is where I'm going.
Plus, she was excited. She just wanted to share. Yeah.
Very excited. So she was planning for 7 days in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. And so day one, they were leaving and arriving in Costa Rica on November 22nd, 2018. That was the first day of the trip. And the plan was to tour the entire country. I mean, I saw a map of all the places they were going to go, and they were going everywhere, which seems like, because you've told me Costa Rica's big to travel around. No, you have not?
No, we've traveled all around it within maybe not 7 days, but you can do it for sure.
Could you drive from one coast to the other in like a day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Along several hours though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then that makes sense. So yeah, so that was her plan. She really wanted to kind of see everywhere while she was there over those 6 days. And even from day one, the whole trip is playing out over social media. We know she was a big into social media, wanted to be an influencer. So she was in constant communication, not only with her followers on social media, but with her friends and family via text, via WhatsApp, and then also over Instagram stories, filming kind of everything that they were doing. So her family and friends and followers got to see her arrival and their first day kind of getting settled in. The second day, they headed to some hot springs. And she, again, was either on Instagram stories or on Instagram Live, kind of streaming all of this as she went.
Those hot springs, I bet she's in, still not on a coast, but the hot springs, middle of the country by the volcano.
I think I remember from your first trip seeing video or pictures of you guys there, and it looked really, really cool. So over the next several days, her and April travel to famous beaches, national parks, all of the major cities throughout Costa Rica, and are just exploring, eating, and again, sharing everything basically via social media. So on day 6 of the trip,
second to last day or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Second to last day, around 11:30 a.m. So this is November 27th, I believe. April, Carla's sister-in-law, who was there with her, had to leave a day early. So Carla went with April to the airport to drop her off, say goodbye. And Carla was going to leave the following day on her actual birthday. So she was spending her last day in Costa Rica by herself, which she was totally fine with. Dropped April at the airport, left the rental car there, and hired a cab to take her back to San Jose and kind of take her on a tour of San Jose. She wanted ask this cab driver, which I guess is a fairly common thing to do there, to like take me through San Jose, show me the sights, let me get out, shop a little bit, and then keep taking me around, basically having a ride.
She didn't have to go far, because if she went with her sister-in-law to the airport, that's in San Jose. She dropped her rental car off. That's in San Jose too. So then hired a car to tool around.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. So, and she did. And again, I saw a video of it on social media. She's walking through markets, sending pictures to friends, posting pictures of the things that she's buying in the market and everything she's looking at. It looked really fun, actually. And around 5 p.m. that day, the driver drove her to ESCAZU. She was staying at a villa in this kind of upscale suburb, a little bit up on the mountain, so in the kind of more traditional part. And it was, and she arranged for the same driver to pick her up the next morning and take her to the airport. So he took her to this little villa that looked very beautiful, and then, said, okay, can you pick me up tomorrow morning around 8:30? Take me back to the airport. He said, no problem. I'll see you tomorrow. So it's her last night, the night before her birthday. She's texting with her friends, texting with her brother, Indiana, telling her brother it's been the most beautiful trip. Everything was so nice. She was telling him that she really liked this little villa that she was staying at because it felt very safe. There was gates and security guards. And that, when I saw that, it made me wonder, just as, the safety levels of traveling to Costa Rica. And it's generally considered very safe.
Very safe.
Very safe.
Of course, you can add the added whatever element layer of being alone and being a female anywhere that will up the danger. But
Yes.
Costa Rica, yes, has been or I think the first time I went, I kind of looked it up and is quite safe. Also, now I'm wondering, and I don't know anything yet, but I'm just wondering, what did the cab driver, I'm not assuming it was this person, but did the cab driver know that she was solo at this point? You know, who was she telling that she was solo?
True.
So that's just on the side of my mind.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, he knew she was alone in those moments, but who
knows what she shared with him?
Exactly.
Also, I think like most places, San Jose, the capital city, the major city, of course, tends to be the more dangerous part, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I think that's why she was specifically saying to her brother when she was talking to him that night before her birthday, I feel really safe here. There's security guards outside. There's gates outside of the villa. It's really, it's beautiful and nice.
She also knew the language, I assume, if she grew up in Venezuela.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so around 6:45, she's texting with some friends and just hanging out in her room when a huge storm starts rolling in. And because the villa that she's staying at is kind of remote and kind of up the mountain in this town, she's texting with her friends like, this is kind of creepy. And then the power goes out. And so she's texting her sister-in-law and she's like, oh my God, the power just went out. I'm alone. It's dark. And the storm was apparently pretty violent, like a pretty significant storm. And so she's texting her sister-in-law and another friend and saying, I'm a little sketched out. Like it's pitch black here and I don't know my way around. I don't want to leave my room, but it's pitch black in my room. And a few minutes later, the power comes back on. She's still a little like shaken, which at first I was like, well, she's like so independent. She's traveling by herself. But then I thought, yeah, you're at this remote villa, kind of at the top of a mountain by yourself, huge storm. You don't know anybody and the power goes out. I'd be a little sketched out.
I'd be for sure sketched out.
Yeah.
Not necessarily is someone going to come, but just
Sure.
Until morning, it's going to be dark in here. I get the power came back on, but until it came back on, sure, she has her cell phone, which
And
she can do
that's
the
it.
flashlight, but she doesn't know where they keep candles or a flashlight or a whatever.
Yep, exactly. So she's having a FaceTime phone call with one of her friends, Keith, who lives in New York. And she said it's the power's back on, but it's still kind of like creepy as fuck here. Now it just feels creepy. And he said, well, tomorrow's your birthday. What are you going to do? Are you going to go out? And she's like, I don't know. The storm is not totally past, but there is this jazz club I was thinking about going to and just like having a few drinks and, before coming back and going to bed. At 8:58 p.m., she got off the phone with Keith and texted one of her friends, I'm doing good, but I'm really thirsty. There's no water in this room. I'm going to go ask the security guard for some water and I'll text you in a minute. At 9 p.m., all communication from Carla's phone stopped. So I think she was back on FaceTime with a friend at that point, like right before 9 p.m., right when she was going to get asked for water. And the call went dead. So whoever she was talking to kind of assumed like, well, there's a storm,
Yeah.
Whatever. Or maybe her phone died. Like nothing, that happens all the time. I was on the phone today and I got those 3 beeps, beep, beep, beep. And it's like drops the call. So didn't think anything of it. There was nothing to indicate that Carla was in danger or anything. She was fine. So the friend she was talking to didn't think anything of it and texted her, call me when you get power back to your phone. So next day, day 7, it is her birthday, Carla's birthday, and everyone's texting her happy birthday, wishing her a happy birthday, calling, leaving her messages because nobody's answering. And as the day kind of goes on, some of her closer friends and family are like, I've heard nothing from her.
Right.
This is weird. She is in constant communication. She is basically putting her whole life on social media. And now it's her birthday. She's in Costa Rica for this big birthday trip. And she's not responding to a single text.
Right. Even if the power's out and if she primarily uses her phone when it's connected to Wi-Fi, even then, it's like at this point in the day, she would have gone to a cafe or a something
to have some type of.
And a lot of people just use data. Like when the power goes out, that's the one I still can use my phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, if I had texted you when you were in Costa Rica on your birthday and I didn't hear from you, that would not be weird to me. That wouldn't be
yeah, because I'm not in constant contact, especially if I'm away.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I think for a lot of people, that would not be that strange. I would expect to hear from you when you got back into town.
Yep.
But for her, it was very uncharacteristic. And I think that's something we've talked about. I was watching a true crime show yesterday, actually. And Mark and I talked about that because he was like, well, if I didn't hear from you for 24 hours, I'd be calling the police. Like something is wrong. I never don't hear from you for 24 hours. And I was like, right. But like, if I didn't hear from Jenna for 24 hours, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe I'd be like, weird that I haven't heard anything. And I'd try and call you and then I'd text Michael, but like, it wouldn't be a red flag. But for everyone else, this was, you know, for everyone in Carla's life who's trying to reach out to her on her birthday and no communication, nothing on social media, it's a bit of a red flag. She also apparently, excuse me, I had to itch my nose, always posts a birthday selfie every single year on her birthday. And no birthday selfie has been posted. So friends, family are a little sketched out, but like, you know, maybe her phone died. She was in a rush to get to the airport. A million things could happen.
Maybe they're also thinking, oh, what's the time difference again? Could that be something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, there's a lot of different possibilities. So her flight is scheduled to land at 5:30 p.m. that day in Florida. And her friends are all in Florida getting ready because little does she know it, but they're going to pick her up and then bring her to a surprise birthday dinner. So several of her friends are going to wherever this birthday dinner is, and then several of her friends are headed to the airport to surprise her and get her. And they go to the airport. They're waiting. The flight lands. No Carla. She doesn't get off. So they go up to the airline and they're like, did she get on the plane in Costa Rica? And the airline said, no, she never even boarded. And so they're like, okay, gosh, maybe she missed her flight, you know? So they're calling her, texting her, nothing. So at this point now, it's been 21 hours since all communication stopped. It had stopped the night before at 9 p.m. We're now, you know, past 9 p.m.
Yeah. Past 5 p.m. the next day.
Yeah. And no word from her at all. So her birthday day and night comes and goes. By the next day, her family's like, something is wrong. We've still heard nothing. So they reach out to the authorities in Costa Rica. And they say, you know, we haven't heard from her. She didn't get on the plane. There's no activity on her social media, no text messages. Everything stopped specifically at 9 p.m. on this specific day.
I wonder if any of her friends or loved ones knew her where she was staying that last night. Like the town, perhaps, or the suburb of San Jose. But I wonder, did you say that she gave her location?
She did. So her family had an itinerary, so they knew.
Oh, that's specific. Okay.
Yeah, they knew that she was staying at a place called Villa Buena Vista.
Okay.
But it was from what I understand, like kind of an Airbnb situation. It's not like a hotel with a front desk.
Right.
I think there were several rooms in the villa, so she wasn't like necessarily the only person staying there, but it wasn't a hotel. Mm-hmm. So they know something's wrong now. Like something is definitely wrong. There's very little question in their mind. So they just go right to the authorities. They reach out to the authorities in Costa Rica and they say, this is urgent. Like this is super unlike her. She was supposed to be home.
Wrong.
It's her birthday. She's not home. We haven't heard. Something is wrong.
She's either lost or hurt or I don't know. Yeah.
Right. And the authorities say, well, she's an adult. And because of that, we're going to wait 48 hours, which, as we've spoken about many times, there is no like hard and fast rule to that, at least in the United States. It's by precinct, by area, whatever. And I don't think there is one in Costa Rica either. But apparently this is kind of the norm there. 48 hours for an adult. got to see maybe they just, didn't want to be in contact.
I feel like
more laid back. Actually, what one of the policemen or women said to one of the brothers was, tourists, it's very common for tourists to come here. They get drunk. They maybe lose their phone. And then people don't hear from them. They get panicked. But they always show up a day or two later. Like, give it 2 or 3 days, she'll show up.
And maybe a part of that is, one, I know Costa Rica is like the Pura Vida lifestyle, laid back in general. 2, I'm sure that does happen often. And it's like, they only have so many resources, right? And I think, I don't know, we'll have to look it up, the crime rates, the murder rates, the kidnapping rates are probably, I'm just guessing, I have no idea, but I want to guess lower than the rest of surrounding areas.
Yeah, I'm sure. Without even looking that up, I'm guessing as well. I think Costa Rica, Belize are some of the safer South American destinations, but I don't know that for a fact, so we will have to look that up. So the family was like, look, we understand that you typically wait 48 hours, but we're telling you something is wrong. Can someone from the police station please go to the rental villa and check it out? So someone does. There's no trace of her. No bags, no cell. Her room looks just normal. There's none of her stuff is there.
None of her, yeah, okay, that
empty,
was my face.
Empty. Nothing is there. They're like, there's no signs of a struggle. Like, it doesn't look like anything. It looks like she was here, she left, and that's it. We don't know what to tell you. So the family calls the kind of host of the rental villa and says, something is wrong. Can you please find out what happened to our daughter, sister, friend? And the host says, yeah, all right, let me talk to my security and see if they know anything, and I'll get back to you. And so while they're waiting to hear from the host of the rental villa, their Carla's friends and brothers start a group text. There's 60 people on this group text to discuss, what are we going to do to find Carla? Like, something's wrong. That's a lot of people. I don't even know 60 people. Let alone 60 people that hop on a group text to find me.
I'd be interested to see or to know, because really from afar, from wherever you are in the U.S., or Florida, or I'm sure there's people besides calling officials in Costa Rica, or you hop on a plane and go there. But then I guess,
what are you going to do?
That would be the only option in my mind.
Right. So this group of friends, I believe this was mostly 60 friends, they decide to get organized and split up into groups and designate each group a task. So one group of friends is in charge of talking to authorities and staying in constant contact with authorities. One group of friends is designated to reach out to news and media outlets and try and get the word out. And then the rest of the friends are tasked with posting all over social media, everywhere, starting a Facebook page, Find Carla.
Wow, very organized and quick on the jump, or
very.
Whatever,
this is like about a day and a half that she's been missing, because there's no one in they don't have anybody boots on the ground in Costa Rica. They don't have anybody there, so they're trying to actively look for her virtually, which is about all they can do at this point. So the family wants to keep digging and find out as much about her last day and night there as possible. So they reach out to the cell phone provider and get as much information as they can from the cell phone provider. They electronically access Carla's call history. So without being the owner of the phone
or having a warrant.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You can only access apparently so much. So the phone company is willing to give the family members the call history, but nothing else at this point. They will need something more official to get more information. So the last outgoing call was to a Costa Rica number, apparently. It's the cab driver. So the family calls that number. The cab driver talks to the family and says, yeah, I took her on a tour of the city, and I was supposed to pick her up to take her to the airport at 8:30 in the morning. And I did. I arrived at 8:30 in the morning, but she never came out. She wasn't there. Nobody showed up.
I wonder do you know what time that call to the cab driver was? Because I
don't.
know, sure, she could have called the cab driver when she first met up with the cab driver, but then she had called all these FaceTime, called all these other people.
That's what I was wondering. And now my only thought is that it says her last outgoing call was to the cab driver. So maybe after he dropped her off, she called to like confirm you're coming at 8:30 in the morning. And then the other phone calls she had were incoming, like from Keith
or maybe she
something.
didn't even call to confirm. Maybe that was just when she called him to first pick her up and they discussed it in the car.
True.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
So the family's like, okay, well, that's very, very odd. And also the family doesn't know who this cab driver is. So they're not only, they want to believe what he's saying, but they're also in their minds like, is he lying? Did he do something? Is he involved in her disappearance? And he's just, pretending like he is a good guy who went there to pick her up and she didn't show up. Who knows?
You don't know the time of that last call?
No.
Okay.
So, one of her brothers I saw an interview with, and he said that he was extremely worried because being from Venezuela, he said, yes, Costa Rica is relatively safe and a lot of places in South America are relatively safe. But
Costa Rica's in Central America.
Oh,
sorry.
geez.
I wanted to say that before, but now I have to.
Oh, that's okay. Sorry. That's true. I should know that because so is Belize.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Correction. Central America. But so her brother said, Costa Rica is considered relatively safe. However, being from Venezuela, he said there is also a lot of evil that exists there. There's a lot of kidnapping, a lot of human trafficking, things like that. And at the time of her trip, apparently, the U.S. had issued, and now I don't really know much about the travel advisories. I know there are different levels. But the U.S. had issued a level 2 advisory due to higher levels of violent crime and trafficking that were occurring at the time in Costa Rica. So a level 2 is like,
up from a level 1.
There you go.
So like they were usually, or I guess I'm just going to assume maybe sitting normally or most often at level 1.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, maybe there's no in particular contributing factor, it just raised that year. People were feeling more crimey.
More crimey. Yes. So level 1 is just considered like exercise normal precautions. The country is generally safe for travelers. Standard safety measures, just basic. Level 2 is exercise slightly increased caution. You should be more aware of your surroundings and take some extra precautions. It means generally that there is a rise in crime at that time. Level 3 is reconsider your travel.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a big jump.
It jumps a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we're at level 2 here in 2018.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's only 4 levels. 1 is normal. 2 is be more cautious. 3 is don't go. And 4 is absolutely do not go. Like avoid all travel to this destination. So level 3, it says travelers are advised to avoid travel due to serious risks to safety and security. Situations could include widespread violence, terrorist attacks, natural disasters, or significant health risks.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
It's just called reconsider is level 3. Level 4 says do not travel. You should avoid all travel to this destination. You will face life-threatening danger.
It's interesting that level 3 they include, and I'm sure all the levels they take it into consideration, but crime, violent crime, that's something different to me than natural disaster. I get they can all lead to death or injury.
Sure.
But I mean, many places that maybe have zero, like the lowest crime rates could also be subject to natural disaster.
Absolutely.
Like
tsunamis,
yeah,
typhoons.
Yeah. Anyway, so they're at a level 2.
So at a level 2, I just picked up the wrong paper. Sorry. No, I did not. Oh, this is what happens when
you're back in.
When you go analog and go back to handwriting
things.
Well,
see, that'll remind you next time to number them.
Yeah, because now okay, so. Okay, here we go. I was correct. So November 29th. So now she is 2 full days missing. The Costa Rica authorities share her image on social media and news outlets in Costa Rica. And the same day as this, her younger brother, Mario, heard from the villa host who said that he talked to the security guard And the security guard says, I'm sorry, I have to let her out. Her whining's killing me. So hold on one second. So on that same day, her younger brother Mario hears from the host of the villa, who says, I talked to the security guard, and the security guard said that the taxi came, but it came at about 5:10 a.m. that morning to take Carla somewhere. Security guard says that's when I saw her get in the cab.
Oh, okay.
So the family is thinking, this can't be right. And I thought it was kind of funny, their reasoning for it. They said, she's not a morning person. So there's no way.
Yeah, why would she opt to get up so early if she didn't have to?
Right. She hates waking up early. Her flight was not until later in the afternoon. There would be no reason for her to leave at 5 a.m. So they're thinking, this is either a misunderstanding.
Or it wasn't her.
Or it's a straight up lie.
True.
So any of these things.
All those things, yeah.
So the family's mind is immediately going to now, after 2 days missing, no communication. They're thinking that perhaps she's been kidnapped.
What were they thinking before? That she maybe was injured or something?
Yeah.
Got lost.
Yeah. So her brother Carlos and his friend, or Carla's friend Greg, decide to go down to Costa Rica. So they buy tickets and head down to Costa Rica. Now we're at November 30th, so 3 full days missing. Her family is panicked, to say the least. And they are constantly on social media taking any tips they can get, any advice that people have. The Facebook page, hashtag Finding Carla, has tens of thousands of people that are leaving messages. She's been all over the news. So it's getting a lot of exposure, but there's nothing coming in that is helpful, unfortunately. Lots of prayers and well wishes, but nothing much. So December 1st, Carlos, her brother, and Greg, this was interesting. They notify the U.S. Embassy that they've arrived in Costa Rica, which...
The U.S. Embassy in Costa Rica.
Yeah, I guess
maybe because they've been in so much contact with different authorities and stuff. I don't know. Maybe they just want to say, hey, we're here.
In case you find anything out.
Like, I know we've been communicating from abroad, but now we're here.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Yeah. So they notify the U.S. Embassy, and then they head to the last known place where Carla was, which is her little villa in ESCAZU. They get there, and the security guard is standing outside the gates, greets Carlos and Greg, shakes their hand, says hello. They ask him questions. They ask, when's the last time you saw her? And he says the same thing that he told the villa host that the family had heard, that she got in a taxi and departed around 5 a.m. that last day on her birthday.
I wonder, I know this, if he did, this wasn't the last time, if he believes the last time was 5 a.m. the next day, but did she connect with him that evening around 9 to get water?
We don't know yet.
Yeah. Huh.
So they go to the actual villa where she was staying, that room, and looking around, nothing. They leave with no more information than they had when she came. It was like there was no trace of her.
Which is what the local authorities had said too.
Yes, exactly. So meanwhile, her friends are continuing what they kind of call this like bombardment online and on social media, constantly posting. They are now emailing Florida government officials, the FBI, anyone they can to have them try to get involved in this and help. And now at 3 days missing, with her face all over the news in both the U.S. and Costa Rica, the authorities are finally kind of ramping up their investigation. They're like getting on board now, which is what they said. They said give it 48 hours. So it's been 3 days. They're now kind of like, okay, well, something is amiss here. So the authorities go back to the villa and want to talk to the rest of the staff, not just the security guard. So they speak to the cleaning lady who cleaned Carla's room later that day. And she says there were no belongings there. When I went in to clean the room, it was empty. There was nothing to indicate an issue. And the security guard, again, now tells the police, as he's already told the villa host and the brother and friend that were there, told the police She got into a cab around 5 a.m. Nothing seemed amiss. Everything seemed fine. So now they want to speak to the taxi driver who supposedly, well, they want to figure out, is the cab who picked her up at 5 a.m. the same one who was supposed to come at 8:30? Is it the same? It's all the same person, or is this a different cab that came at 5 a.m.? So they go and speak to the taxi driver who was supposed to pick her up at 8:30 and who was driving her around in San Jose that day before.
Right.
And the family, Carla's family, is calling the police like, well, what did you find out? What did you find out? And they said, we don't know. We're still investigating. You need to let us investigate before we give you any details. So December 2nd, 5 days missing now. Marco Rubio, the senator of Florida, who they got in touch with, is able to get the rest of her cell phone records released for them without having to, get a warrant and go through all kinds of red tape. So their efforts to contact, the government officials and stuff really paid off. So the family now is able to not only see her outgoing call log, but able to see text messages, exactly where the location of her phone was.
Important.
All those things. So after her phone went dead at 9 p.m., which it did, it shows that it did go dead at 9 p.m., it reconnected to the internet around 12:17 a.m. that same night, briefly.
Was it long enough to catch a location?
Yes. So they tracked the phone and found that it never left the rental property. That was the phone's last location, was the rental property. So Carlos and Greg, her brother and friend, are still just searching. They're just at this point like searching, like walking around ESCAZU, talking to people, looking for any sign of anything.
Yeah, I would have asked him. Maybe there weren't other visitors or residents staying in the villa.
Right. I don't think there were at the time. I think that it had the ability to house other people, but there weren't. So police find out that the taxi that allegedly took her at 5 o'clock in the morning, it is the same guy, but he never picked her up at 5 a.m. He says, I arrived at 8:30 as I was asked to pick her up, and she never showed up. I waited. She never showed up, so I left. But nobody ever asked me to be here at 5 a.m. I never drove here at 5 a.m.
So I wonder, did someone really show up at 5 a.m. or did the security guard just say that? And also, did they have cameras anywhere? So
I don't think they had cameras on the property, but they did speak to other employees, and they did have cameras at the airport. So they went through to see if a taxi with Carla ever arrived at the airport, or if that guy's taxi ever arrived at the airport. And basically they were trying to corroborate this taxi driver's story, which they were able to do between the cameras, between witnesses at the villa who did see him come at 8:30 in the morning and wait. Nobody saw any taxi arrive at 5 a.m., apparently, according to the people they spoke to. So they, at this point, are tending to believe the taxi driver. Everything he's saying seems to check out. So they were like, all right, well, we're going to focus on the last person to have allegedly seen her then, the security guard. So they go question him again, and he has the same story. But now they know, for the most part, they believe he's lying, because he's sticking to that taxi driver who drove her around and dropped her off the day before came at 5. I saw him come at 5. And they know that's not true now. So now they know he's lying.
Well, and in my mind, of course, I don't know for sure, but the last person, if she did actually connect with security guard to get water around 9 p.m., in my mind, that's always been the last person that saw her.
Right.
Physically.
Right. So the social media push pays off yet again, because the U.S. Embassy is now putting pressure on the Costa Rica government to really search harder, not just go talk to people, but let's put some CSI, let's put some actual investigatory efforts into this. So, and that works. The Costa Rica authorities go back to the villa and do a better search. They bring chemicals to actually search the room, luminol to look for blood. They bring dogs to search for Carla's scent and any other scents that they find. And what they found was disturbing.
Oh.
I
just want to say something real quick before you say the disturbingness of it all. With just eyes and ears and nose and hands, it all looked pretty copacetic, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was clean. There was nothing was broken.
Yeah.
There was no apparent...
There was nothing.
Nothing. It just looked like a clean room that
ready for the next people who would stay. Yeah.
Exactly. But when they use the combination of the dogs and the luminol and chemicals, they are able to determine that there was blood throughout her whole room that had been cleaned up. The room had been heavily sanitized, from what they could tell, multiple times with bleach and vinegar. Whoever cleaned this room went to great lengths to get rid of any residual blood or other bodily fluids. So at this point, the family is having to make kind of the harsh, I was going to say reality, face the harsh, realization, exactly, that maybe she's not just missing. They're still hopeful that maybe she's hurt somewhere, but they're not super hopeful at this point. They're trying. So the FBI is now involved and doing grid searches around the entire area surrounding the villa. They ask Carlos and Greg, who are, remember, there in Costa Rica, please stay at your location, at your hotel. Do not leave. Do not come out here. Let us do our job. There are helicopters, dogs. It was a big search effort.
They're canvassing. They are canvassing to perhaps find a body.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the family is hopeful now. Great. Finally, we have like the full force of the FBI and the Costa Rica authorities, and everybody is actually doing something now. You know, we're what, 6 days missing at this point. And later that afternoon, an unfortunate discovery was made. They found a body about 200 meters from the rental villa. And they tell Carlos, her brother, first. And he...
do they know yet it's her, or it matches all things, but they can't fully confirm?
They can't fully confirm at this point. So they tell, and he shares with the family, maybe this isn't her. Let's hope it's not her. They're going to let us know, run tests, etc. And then he sends a text message later that day that says, quote, "I wish I didn't have to send this. It is Carla. She is gone. Please pray for my mother." They find her cell phone, laptop, passport, and one of her suitcases with her near the body in the area. So robbery is not an option at this point. Somebody's going to rob. They're taking your passport and your laptop.
Well, and even if they had robbed her, they also murdered her. So
right, exactly.
Right.
But they're looking at this point now. They're like, what's the motive? Yeah. So it's not robbery. It was apparently a brutal attack. Very violent. She fought back. It was bloody.
Sexual assault?
We don't know that at this point, or they're not sharing at this point. But they are ready to make an arrest.
Okay.
Which seemed like a jump to me. But they feel confident that this has to be the work of the security guard. Mm-hmm. It's the only person who was in contact with her. And this is not in a bustling part. There's gates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nobody's wandering up and
it sounds like, at least in my mind, a little bit of a drive up to the neighborhood and then through a gate. And
exactly.
So it's not just people traipsing around after the bar or after their meal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So hours later, they do officially arrest 32-year-old Bismarck Espinoza Martinez, the security guard. He apparently was living in the room next to Carla. They found out.
Hence why, at least right next to that, there weren't other vacationers or stayers.
And they arrested him because they were afraid that he was a flight risk. They found out that he was an undocumented Nicaraguan citizen who was living in Costa Rica, and they thought, there's a good chance that he's gonna flee. And the one thing apparently that really led them back to him, aside from the fact he was allegedly the last person to see her, they find out he's staying in the room next to her. They have talked to everyone. So they either talked to Keith, who she was FaceTiming that night, or her family told them about the call. And her saying, I'm going to ask for water. I'm going to ask the security guard for water because there's no water in my room. And that was what really set off something in their head that made them think, well, she probably did interact with him last and asked him for water, and then something happened. It all seems very circumstantial to me, though. Still at this point, there's nothing really official.
But I think maybe, and I don't know if that allows in Costa Rica for you to arrest someone, but maybe for them it wasn't official yet, but he was a strong contender, a possible contender, and they were worried he would flee back to his home country. So that's more of the reason than hard and fast evidence that they arrested him or detained.
Yeah, arrested him. They fully arrested him. And her family is obviously very devastated. Her brother was really in shock, and I heard him talk about it. It was really interesting. He said, the person who was hired to keep her safe is now the person who likely killed her. And he says, I can't believe, when I arrived, I met him, I shook his hand. He was super calm and seemed concerned and was very helpful. He had no emotion. His brother was like, I truly believe he's like a monster to be able to do that. They performed an autopsy and were able to determine what killed her, that she had blunt force trauma to her head, and she had stab wounds in her face and neck. She had 2 broken vertebrae, bruises everywhere. It was a very violent attack, and it was sexually motivated. So she was sexually assaulted. And they were able to kind of put together what they believed happened, because he did not admit to this even when he was in custody. They believe that she asked him for water, and he entered her room to bring her water, tried to rape her. She fought back. He ultimately did rape and kill her in the room, and then disposed of the body, and then used, they were able to determine that he used supplies from the supply closet on the property that the maid used to clean the room. So while he was awaiting his trial, which was going to be in Costa Rica, her family was, let everybody online knew. They cremated her and scattered her ashes in the ocean because she loved the ocean. Bismarck maintained his innocence. He never confessed. But a family friend of Bismarck's mom says that she overheard him confessing somehow. At some point after the crime, she was near enough by to hear him kind of bragging about this to someone. And I guess that combined with the fact that he was the last person to see her.
Yeah, because it sounds like they didn't find fingerprints of his or DNA.
No, not that I was able to.
But if they knew I guess you can tell someone was sexually assaulted without necessarily finding DNA.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of adds up. Maybe in America it wouldn't be enough for I don't know what he was charged with yet, but.
Yeah. So she did have DNA under her nails, but by the time they found the body 6 days later, it was too decomposed to match that DNA to anybody specifically. Right. She also, I forgot to include this, which is terrible, but she had stab wounds in her hands. She was defending herself and trying to fight back. So more information on that. The family friend, she was a witness in the trial, and said actually that his mom told her that he had confessed to her.
Got it.
And that was kind of the last nail in the coffin, so to speak. That was a bad pun. But 1 year later, at his trial, he was found guilty of what they call in Costa Rica simple homicide, which is essentially equivalent to second-degree murder here.
Not premeditated.
Right, not premeditated. And he received a sentence of 16 years in prison.
In Costa Rica? You think? Yeah.
Which the family was not happy with.
Sure.
They immediately filed an appeal for a harsher sentencing, and they are currently apparently awaiting a court date, and they also are suing the Airbnb in federal court. That case is currently in arbitration, so there's no conclusion to if the family will get any kind of what do you call that?
Justice?
Well, sure, justice certainly for him. That will be determined by their appeal to the court. If he can get another,
you're talking about the suing of the Airbnb or rental villa.
Yeah, what is that called? It's not. There's a word for like you're getting money because somebody was killed, but I never liked it. The word. I can't think of it. I can't get it in my brain.
Either way, I mean, I get totally why they would be suing the Airbnb or the villa, the rental property. And if this guy, well, actually, he wasn't an expat. He was illegally in Costa Rica. There it is. Because I was going to say, if this person applied for the job, this security person applied for the job, they didn't have a big back or have a record.
That's it.
Then, well, okay, I get why the family would still sue. And the people that hired him, they hired him because he seemed like a good fit for the job. But because this person was illegally, it sounds like in Costa Rica, that would be a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. That's exactly it. Compensatory damages intended to compensate the family for their loss and cover medical expenses, funeral costs, etc., pain and suffering, or punitive damages may be awarded in cases where, like the defendants acted reckless, and it's to punish the defendant and deter future behavior. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That makes sense why they would sue the Airbnb, because they hired someone who was undocumented.
And they might have anyways, just because, oh my gosh, why wouldn't they? They're devastated. They're trying to just get any kind of justice, retribution, compensation, because they obviously are going through hell. And it makes even more sense now because this was an undocumented person.
Right. That does make more sense. Yeah.
Wow.
So that is...
well, Bismarck, let's follow up on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that, 16 years seems...
Nothing.
Because, fine, it wasn't premeditated, but...
Well, yeah, to me that doesn't matter.
No. Yeah. Huh. See, and this other article I have says that it was she stated the Villa La Mas Hotel, but it's an Airbnb. Either way.
Yeah, at this point, those things, the rental, the villa, the Airbnb, the hotel, the motel, they can all be interchanged too. Yeah. And also language translation, Yep.
He was also charged with aggravated robbery, but he was acquitted due to lack of evidence. As part of his sentence, he was ordered to pay Carla's family $53,000 in compensation.
Did he have that also?
I'm sure he didn't. Well, exactly. That's the thing. That was
you can be ordered to pay, and if you don't have it and you're going to prison, great.
What was I was watching I watched a lot of true crime, which I don't usually like, true crime actual shows this weekend. And there was one where that's exactly what one of the lawyers said. Like, you can be ordered to pay $1 billion in compensation to the family in pain and suffering. But if you don't have that money, that family never sees it. So it doesn't matter. So yeah, this is one that I would like to, cause it's fairly recently.
Yeah.
And, one that I would like to see hopefully, hopefully the appeal goes through and he gets a stricter sentence, because what a terrible.
Also, it's odd that he's being jailed in
Costa Rica and not Venezuela
when he's not a citizen, but
yeah,
but maybe that's because it's still ongoing.
That's
they've
true.
set up
Because
the
they
appeal.
appealed it.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, we'll follow up.
We will follow up, and our thoughts go out to Carla's family and friends, of which it sounds like she had many, and we'll hopefully find out more about this horrible murder. And hopefully we did it justice, and thank you for listening.
Happy Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I just looked this up. That's why I was kind of why he was charged with second degree simple homicide, because there's not enough evidence to convict on a charge of first degree murder, which requires evidence of planning and intent.
Which he probably didn't plan. He didn't know she was coming to town.
No, of course
right.
not. Yeah.
So
yeah.
he saw an opportunity. It's a crime of opportunity.
Yeah. Crime of opportunity.
Or not even. Maybe just quote unquote meant to sexually assault / rape her. And when she started to fight back,
Yep.
he fought back and killed her.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening, and happy Monday. Yeah, it's not a happy story, but it's hopefully a happy Monday for you.
Yeah.
And we will be back next week with another story. Leave us a review, write us, email us, call us, all the things. And bye, guys.
Good night and good luck.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Death by Southwest is hosted by Jenna Schneider and Margot Carmichael.
Executive produced by Margot Carmichael.
Produced by Jenna Schneider.
Audio editing and sound design by Margot Carmichael.
Music by Soundstripe.
And a special thanks to Edward R. Murrow for letting us borrow his famous sign-off phrase, good night and good luck.